Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive, into this whole world of digital privacy and security. It seems like every day there's a new headline about data breaches or online scams. It's enough to make anyone paranoid. But instead of just, freaking out, we thought we'd take a closer look at some of these issues and try to understand what's really going on.
Absolutely. I think knowledge is power. And, the more we understand about the threats out there, the better equipped we'll be to protect ourselves.
Exactly. So today we're diving into a really fascinating conversation between some cybersecurity experts.
Yeah.
It was on a Spanish radio show, believe it or not. And they get into some pretty juicy questions. Like, should your phone company have the power to just block calls and texts they think are suspicious? Even if it means maybe messing with legitimate services.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Where do you draw the line? We all want to be safe online, but not at the cost of our, freedom and privacy.
Right. And then there's the whole question of intellectual property online. How do we protect people's creative work without shutting down open access to information?
It's a real balancing act. And then, you've got these young people who are practically digital natives growing up with all this technology, and yet some of them choose to go down the cybercrime path. What's up with that?
Seriously, it's mind-boggling. So let's jump right into the deep end, shall we? The radio show starts off with this real-life example. The Spanish telecom giant Movistar. They decided to block Cloudflare, and you can imagine the fallout.
Oh, yeah. That caused a major uproar. Now, most people know Cloudflare as that service that helps websites load faster and protects them from attacks.
Right, makes sense.
But what's really interesting here is how Movistar used this blocking tactic to try and stop people from illegally streaming soccer matches.
Wait, so they blocked a major internet security company just to stop people from watching soccer?
Yeah.
That seems a bit extreme.
It does, doesn't it? And that's what got everyone so riled up, because by blocking Cloudflare, Movistar ended up disrupting a ton of legitimate websites and businesses that rely on Cloudflare services.
Talk about collateral damage. It's like shutting down a whole highway just to stop a few speeders.
That's a great analogy, and it really raises the question, are we okay with sacrificing some of our online freedom for tighter control? It's the slippery slope.
And doesn't it also make you wonder, like, if someone's really determined to watch that soccer match illegally, aren't they going to find a way around the block anyway?
Absolutely. This Movistar incident is a perfect example of how sometimes these attempts to control access to information online can actually backfire. They can end up causing more harm than good. And ironically, they can even drive users towards less secure, more shadowy corners of the internet.
It's like you're pushing them into the arms of the very people you're trying to stop.
Exactly. It's counterproductive.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about the bigger picture. Where do we draw the line between, protecting intellectual property and maintaining a free and open internet?
It's a tough question. And speaking of, digital savvy and making good choices online, the radio show also discussed a court case that really got me thinking. It involved a young person who lost money to a phishing scam.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. The court basically said that the victim should have known better because they were young and digitally savvy.
It's like saying just because you know how to use a smartphone, you should automatically be immune to all online scams. Come on.
It's a dangerous assumption to make.
Yeah.
Just because someone grew up with technology doesn't automatically make them a cybersecurity expert.
Exactly. So what does this say about the level of digital literacy we should expect from people in today's world? Is there some baseline we should all be striving for?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something the experts on the show were grappling with as well, because even the most experienced internet users can fall victim to these sophisticated phishing attacks.
Especially when we're tired or distracted.
Exactly. We all have those moments where we let our guard down.
So is it even fair to put the entire responsibility on individuals to protect themselves? Shouldn't there be a greater emphasis on education and awareness?
Absolutely. We need better cybersecurity education and awareness programs regardless of your age or how tech-savvy you are. It's about equipping people with the tools and knowledge to navigate the digital world safely.
So it's not just about knowing how to use a computer or a smartphone. It's about being aware of the risks and knowing how to protect yourself.
Exactly. And what really surprised me was how the radio show talked about the motivations behind cybercrime. They almost framed it like it was a legitimate industry.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. They discussed how cybercrime is becoming more and more organized and professionalized, with structured operations, recruitment strategies, even competitive salaries.
It's kind of disturbing when you think about it. Like, they're presenting cybercrime as a viable career path.
And that's the scary part, because compared to traditional crime, it's seen as less risky and potentially more lucrative.
So for someone who might be, disillusioned or desperate for money, It could be tempting.
Unfortunately, yes. And that's why it's so important to understand the factors that might drive someone towards cybercrime so we can address those root causes.
So it's not just about catching the bad guys. It's about preventing people from becoming bad guys in the first place.
Right. It's a much bigger challenge than just, building stronger firewalls. It's about addressing social and economic inequalities and providing opportunities for young people to use their tech skills for good.
It's about creating a world where cybercrime isn't even a tempting option.
Exactly. And that's a goal worth striving for.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to explore.
Join us for part 2, where we'll continue our deep dive into this fascinating world of digital privacy and security. We'll be talking about the role of ethical hackers, the importance of collaboration, and what each of us can do to protect ourselves online.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Last time we were talking about how cybercrime is becoming almost like a structured career path, which is a pretty unsettling thought.
Yeah, it is. And it really highlights how important those ethical hackers and cybersecurity professionals are, the ones out there fighting the good fight every day, trying to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
It's like this constant game of cat and mouse, right? Where the bad guys are always coming up with new ways to exploit systems, and the good guys are trying to plug the holes before it's too late.
Exactly. And, as the experts in that radio show pointed out, the techniques and tactics that cybercriminals use are constantly evolving. So these cybersecurity pros have to be constantly learning and adapting, too.
It's almost like a never-ending arms race. It sounds exhausting.
It can be. But, it's also incredibly rewarding, knowing that you're making a real difference, protecting people and organizations from these threats.
So what kind of qualities do you think make someone successful in this field, besides being a tech whiz?
Well, yeah, you need a strong foundation of technical skills. But it goes beyond just knowing how to code. You have to be able to think analytically, solve problems, and really understand how systems work. You've got to be adaptable, resilient, able to think on your feet and come up with creative solutions under pressure.
Sounds like you need nerves of steel, too. Especially when you're dealing with these high-stakes situations, where one wrong move could have disastrous consequences.
Definitely. But there's also this ethical dimension to it, all right? We were talking earlier about how someone with the skills to protect systems could also have the skills to, exploit them. How do we make sure that cybersecurity professionals are using their knowledge for good?
That's a really important point. I mean, it's a lot of power to put in someone's hands.
It is. And, the experts on the show really stress the importance of having a strong ethical foundation within the cybersecurity community, instilling a sense of responsibility in people, making sure they understand the potential consequences of their actions, and that they always act with integrity.
It's almost like being a doctor. They have the knowledge to heal people, but they could also cause harm if they misuse that knowledge.
That's a perfect analogy. And just like in medicine, there needs to be a clear code of ethics, a set of guidelines that everyone in the cybersecurity field follows.
So it's not just about having the skills, it's about having the right mindset too.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the power you have as a cybersecurity professional and using it responsibly to make the digital world a safer place.
And that brings up another important point. The experts talked a lot about the need for collaboration in cybersecurity. Why is that so crucial?
Well, because cybercrime is a global issue. It doesn't respect borders or boundaries. So we need a coordinated global effort to combat it. We need governments and private companies and individual cybersecurity experts all working together, sharing information, developing common security standards, and, helping each other out.
So it's not just about each country or each company fending for themselves. It's about sharing knowledge and resources to create a united front against cybercrime.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
So what about us, the everyday users who aren't cybersecurity experts? What can we do to protect ourselves in this increasingly complex digital landscape?
Well, the radio show had some great advice for that, too. And it starts with being mindful of the information you share online. Think before you post anything. Be wary of suspicious emails or links or attachments, If something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, we've all been tempted by those clickbait headlines or those emails promising us $1 million.
Right. And those scams are getting more and more sophisticated all the time. So it's important to be vigilant and don't click on anything that seems even remotely fishy.
Okay, noted.
Yeah.
So besides being careful about what we click on, what else can we do to stay safe online?
Well, another really important thing is to use strong passwords and enable two-factor authentication whenever possible.
Right, two-factor authentication. That's where you have to enter a code from your phone or something.
Yeah, it adds an extra layer of security. and makes it much harder for hackers to access your accounts, even if they manage to steal your password.
Makes sense. So strong passwords, two-factor authentication, anything else?
Oh, and definitely keep your software and operating systems updated. You know, all those annoying update notifications you get? Don't ignore them. They often include important security fixes that can protect you from known exploits.
So those updates are actually important. I usually just click, remind me later.
Don't. It's like leaving your front door unlocked. You're just making it easier for the bad guys to get in.
Okay, point taken. I'll start paying more attention to those updates. But, besides all the technical stuff, what about the human element? How can we protect ourselves from those social engineering scams where people try to trick you into giving them personal information?
That's a great question. And it's something the experts on the show talked about quite a bit. Scammers are getting really good at manipulating people. They might impersonate a trusted source, like your bank or a government agency, or they might play on your emotions, trying to scare you or create a sense of urgency to pressure you into making a rash decision.
So it's all about being aware of those tactics and not letting our emotions get the better of us.
Exactly. It's about thinking critically, not taking anything at face value. And, if something seems off, trust your gut instinct. Don't be afraid to ask questions or to double check with a trusted source.
So it's really about being an informed and empowered digital citizen.
Exactly. It's about taking control of your online security and not just blindly trusting that everything will be okay.
It's like you said earlier, knowledge is power. The more we understand about these threats, the better equipped we'll be to protect ourselves.
Exactly. And the more we can all work together to create a safer and more secure digital world for everyone.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive. And we've talked about, cybercrime and protecting ourselves online. But now I want to get into something that's kind of the heart of the whole internet thing. Intellectual property rights and open access. It feels like this constant tug of war.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. I mean, the internet was built on this idea of sharing information freely.
Right.
But then you have all this content being created online, music, movies, books, software, and the people who created it deserve to be compensated for their work.
Right, of course. But then how do you balance that with the whole open nature of the internet? It's like you said, a tug of war.
Exactly. And, the radio show we've been talking about, they brought up some really interesting points about this. One expert was saying that strong intellectual property protection is actually crucial for encouraging innovation.
That makes sense. I mean, if people could just steal your ideas without any consequences, what's the point of creating anything new?
Exactly. Creators need to know that their work will be protected and that they can actually make a living from it. Otherwise, the incentive to create just disappears.
Right. So you need that protection to keep the creative juices flowing. But then isn't there a danger of going too far in the other direction? Like if copyright laws become too restrictive, doesn't that stifle creativity and limit access to information?
Oh, absolutely. It's like anything else. You need to find that balance, the sweet spot where you're protecting the rights of creators, but also making sure that knowledge and culture can still flourish.
It's a tightrope walk for sure, but it's an important one. Because the internet has become this incredible platform for sharing ideas and connecting with people from all over the world. And we don't want to lose that.
Right. And the radio show actually dug into some of the challenges we're facing, like online piracy, for example. It's so easy to download or stream content illegally these days that it almost feels like the norm for some people.
Yeah, and it's not just movies and music anymore. It's software, textbooks, scientific articles, you name it. If it's digital, someone's probably pirating it.
Exactly. And the experts were debating whether it's even possible to crack down on piracy effectively. I mean, the technology is always evolving, and there are always new ways to get around the rules.
Right, it's like playing whack-a-mole. You shut down one pirate site, and 10 more pop up in its place.
Exactly. And, one expert made a really interesting point. They said that sometimes piracy can actually act as a form of promotion.
Really? I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, they were saying that someone might discover a new band or a new author through a pirated copy of their work.
Okay, I can see that happening.
And if they really like it, they might then go on to buy their albums or their books legitimately, or even go to their concerts.
So in a way, piracy could actually introduce people to new artists and creators and lead to more sales in the long run.
Exactly. It's not always as simple as good guys versus bad guys.
It sounds like this whole issue of intellectual property and open access is a lot more nuanced than people might realize.
It definitely is. And the experts on the show were really emphasizing the need for ongoing dialogue and collaboration between creators, consumers, policymakers. Everyone needs to be at the table.
So it's not just about finding the right laws or the right technology. It's about having open and honest conversations about how we value creativity and knowledge in the digital age.
Exactly, and how we can balance the rights of individuals with the good of society as a whole.
It's a big challenge, but it's one that we need to face head on
Mhm.
because the internet is here to stay, and it's only going to become more central to our lives in the future.
Absolutely. So, what can our listeners do to be a part of this conversation and help shape a digital future that works for everyone?
Yeah. What can we do to make sure that the internet remains this amazing platform for creativity and innovation while also respecting the rights of creators?
Well, first of all, stay informed, read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, and talk to people about these issues. Share your thoughts and ideas. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
And be willing to listen to different perspectives, too, even if you don't agree with them.
Exactly. It's about having those open and honest conversations and trying to find common ground, even when it's difficult.
And another thing we can all do is support creators directly. Buy their books, their music, their movies legally. Show them that you value their work.
It's a small gesture, but it can make a big difference. And it helps to create a more sustainable ecosystem for creativity.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the main takeaway is that the world of digital privacy and security is constantly evolving. It's full of challenges and contradictions, but it's also full of opportunities.
And it's up to all of us to shape the future of the internet, to make it a place where we can all feel safe, connected, and empowered.
So stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring this fascinating world. We'll be back soon with another deep dive. Until then, stay safe online, everyone.
Thanks for listening.